Hello, spiritual friends. I'm just going to carry on where I left off a few weeks ago. This is Jesus has been found guilty as charged, and now he's left Pilate. Wondering how to cope with this innocent man. But then Pilate took Jesus and flogged him. Yeah, because he was hoping that just by flogging him and to teach him a lesson, perhaps he'll sort of appease the Jews, because it's the Jews who's pushing for him to be crucified, because Pilate was beginning to think this man is no charge with him really, but he had to go through it because the Jews threatened to tell Nero, the Caesar at the time, yeah. So he could have got in trouble if the Jews caused him trouble, yeah. So I'll just start reading here now where I left off. John 19. Then Pilate took Jesus and flogged him. The soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put a purple robe on him. They said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they hit him with their hands. Again, Pilate went out and said to them, "Look, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no guilt in him." Then Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." When the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God." Then Pilate heard these words. He was more afraid, and entered the Praetorium again and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate said to him, "Are you not speaking to me? Do you know that I have the power to release you and the power to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me unless it were given to you from above. Therefore, he who handed me over to you has the greatest sin." From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend." "Whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judgment seat in a place called the Pavement, which the Hebrews is Kabbahathalah. It was the day of preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. He said to the Jews, "Here is your king." But they shouted, Away with him, away with him. Crucify him. Pilate said to them, Shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar. You can see why. Pilate's hands are tied, can't you? If them keep on insisting they want him killed. The person they've been waiting for many years, their Messiah, and they didn't recognize him, as it says in the Old Testament. Then he handed him over them to be crucified. The crucifixion. So they took Jesus and led him away. He went out, carrying his own cross, to a place called the place of skull, which is Hebrew is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, and 2 others with him, one on each side, and Jesus in the middle. Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. The writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Many of the Jews read this title, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, in Greek, and in Latin. The chief priest of the Jews said to Pilate, Do not write the King of the Jews. But he said, I am the King of the Jews. Pilate answered, What have I written? I have written. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts. A part for each soldier, and also his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven from top to bottom. So they said to one another, Let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to decide whose it shall be. This happened to fulfill the scripture, which says, They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Therefore the soldiers did these things. But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and a disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, Woman, here is your son. Then he said to the disciple, Here is your mother. From that time this disciple took her to his own home. The death of Jesus. After this, Jesus, knowing that everything was now accomplished, that the scriptures might be fulfilled, said, I thirst. A bowl full of sour wine was placed there. So they put a sponge full of sour wine on a hyssop and held it to his mouth. Then Jesus had received the sour wine. He said, It is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. The pieces of the Jews' side. The piercing of Jesus' side. Since it was the day of the preparation to prevent bodies from remaining on the cross on the Sabbath day, for the Sabbath day was a high day, the Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. Therefore the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus, they saw that he was dead already. They did not break his legs. However, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear. Immediately blood and water came out. He who saw it has testified.